The Edo Peace: How Japan Kept Control for 250 Years. By the dawn of the 17th century, Japan had finally emerged from centuries of near constant warfare. The Sengoku period, the age of warring states, had left the land fractured, exhausted, and weary. Entire clans had been erased, villages abandoned, and countless lives lost in the struggle for power. Into this fragile landscape stepped Tokugawa Ieyasu, a survivor of decades of shifting alliances, betrayals, and battles. Unlike many warlords before him, Ieyasu understood that true power was not taken by force alone. It had to be maintained for generations. In 1603, after the decisive Battle of Sekigahara had cemented his control over the nation, Ieyasu was named shogun. He established the Tokugawa shogunate, moving the capital to Edo, the city that would become modern Tokyo. For the first time in living memory, Japan would be united under a single authority, and for the first time, the land would experience a peace enforced not only by armies, but by systems, law, and surveillance. To prevent a return to the chaos of the Sengoku period, the shogunate implemented a rigid social hierarchy. Samurai, once warriors constantly at war, were repurposed as bureaucrats, administrators, and enforcers of order. Farmers, artisans, and merchants were bound to their social roles, with mobility strictly controlled. The Sankin Kotai system, or alternate attendance, required all daimyo, or regional lords, to spend every other year living in Edo. The families remained behind in the provinces as de facto hostages, ensuring loyalty. Roads, bridges, and highways were carefully monitored, connecting the nation while keeping rebellion difficult. The shogunate did not only control land and people, it controlled memory. Chronicles, genealogies, and maps were carefully curated to favor loyal families and minimize those who had resisted Tokugawa rule. Records of rebellious clans were often removed or edited. Shrines and temples that could serve as rallying points for dissent were placed under supervision. The strategies of erasure and silencing first practiced during the Sengoku period, such as those used by Hideyoshi at Oshi Castle, were now institutionalized. Japan's rulers had learned that the most effective victories were those that left no trace, no monuments, no heroic last stand to inspire defiance. Even as control tightened, Edo society flourished. Markets thrived, towns grew, and culture, art, literature, theater blossomed under the enforced peace. Samurai were no longer soldiers, constantly testing swords against neighbors, but administrators and teachers, guiding society with the authority of the shogunate behind them. Villages continued to work the land, yet they existed within a system that ensured obedience without the need for constant violence. Yet within this carefully maintained peace, echoes of Sengoku-era erasure remained. Families that had once held power quietly survived as minor retainers or were absorbed into other domains. Castles that might have been centers of resistance were dismantled or abandoned. Roads and towns were rerouted or renamed. In some cases, entire communities appear to vanish from historical records, leaving only soil layers, wells, and foundations to tell the story of their existence. Archaeologists today can identify these traces, confirming the deliberate measures taken to consolidate control. For over 2.5 centuries, this system endured. Japan remained remarkably stable, avoiding the large-scale domestic conflicts that had characterized earlier centuries. Peace, the Tokugawa demonstrated, was not a gift. It was carefully engineered. And while samurai became administrators and formerly powerful clans faded into obscurity. The lessons of the past, the importance of controlling not only land and people, but also history itself, were never forgotten. By the time the shogunate began to weaken in the mid 19th century, Japan had become a nation defined as much by what it chose to remember as by what it had forgotten. Streets, towns, and administrative records all carried the imprint of the Tokugawa system. It was a society built to last, shaped by the knowledge that true stability depends not only on surviving your enemies, but on ensuring their influence is removed from the story itself. Peace in Edo, Japan, wasn't won with sword or spear. It was won with law, order, and the careful shaping of memory. And while the land prospered and culture flourished, beneath the surface lay the invisible power of control. A lesson first learned in the blood-soaked fields of the Sengoku period, now perfected and maintained for centuries. History remembers Edo as an era of unprecedented stability.